Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast, back for another episode this week with Justin Goodbread. Hey, excited to have Justin on the show. He's a globally recognized business strategist. He's a keynote speaker and founder of Relentless Value Coaching, a membership and advisory program that equips service-based business owners to scale their companies to $10+ million in enterprise value without sacrificing their faith, their family, or their freedom. And we know I don't think that there's any better time, I think, than now that's incredibly relevant. Over the past couple of decades, Justin started, scaled, and sold 7 companies, including a RIA that reached 8-figure value in under 4 years, built and scaled and exited 7 different companies for 7, 8, and 9-figure values across industries, leveraging a proven framework of value acceleration, leadership development, and strategic delegation. He's also an author, so he's got a book coming out, and so we can talk a little bit about that maybe on the show. He's the creator of the Deca Millionaire Way and the Relentless framework, and so excited to have him on the show as we dive into entrepreneurship, to business, to faith, family, and all of the good things that come along with that. So excited to have you on the show, Justin. Welcome.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks for taking time out of your day with me and the listeners to dive into how you help business owners, entrepreneurs, maybe what you've learned along your journey. But before we get there, fill us in for those of our listeners that aren't familiar with you, what you worked on, or maybe run into you in Tennessee. Give us a little bit of your background. How'd you get started into business and the coaching and everything that you've got going on today? Because you've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, first thing I'll say is I'm just a country boy, born and raised on a dirt road, Steve, South Georgia. I grew up running barefoot, chasing alligators. That's who Goodbread is. So I've been blessed beyond measure, dude. God's been so good to me. We've had a journey of 30-something years in the entrepreneur seat. It's not always been good times, man. We've had some tough times. We've had some times where it was beans and rice and duct tape holding our family together. But man, through all those good times and bad times, he's been faithful. I'm just, like I said, I'm just a country boy living beyond our dreams. I started my first business when I was 15. Believe it or not, way back when. It seems like when dinosaurs ruled the earth now as I get older. And it was a grass cutting company. I think every entrepreneur at some point probably knows somebody who cut grass. But I started when I was 15. We scaled that company. I exited that for value whenever I was 22. Moved here to East Tennessee, where my wife and her family was from. In fact, my family, you and I were just talking, her family's from the Philippines. And they immigrated over here during the Vietnam War. And I ended up resting here in the valley of East Tennessee. And so naturally, I ended up moving up there with my wife from South Georgia and moved up here to Tennessee. And so Tennessee's been my home for a while, but it's been good. Since then, we've had companies that we found in the financial services, in the coaching industry, in the insurance industry, in the dental industry. I had a lot of different movements in the service-based industry. And now after selling and exiting those companies, I had the privilege, and I say that honestly and candidly, I had the privilege of working with service-based business owners globally and teaching them how to radically scale their companies. It is so much fun, Steve. I am living somebody's dream. It's not mine, because this is far better than what I could ever dream for myself. It is a fun journey, dude.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a lot. It's a lot to do. It's a lot of ground to cover. And you're still a young guy. I like to think of myself.
Great, buddy. Look at this gray.
Hey, we're matching, man. I tell my girls that all the time. I'm like, okay, daddy still feels like he's young, even though my back hurts a little too often and my knees and all that kind of stuff. But you've covered a lot of ground. And actually, I love that you took, like, starting with your first business, starting with a grass cutting company, where a lot of times, okay, I think we take for granted like those simple things that we can pick up. Maybe you're listening in, maybe somebody's, hey, my W-2 is working in the bank. I'm a teller at a bank. And there's not a lot of upside here for me. I don't plan on staying here. Okay, that's okay. But you know what? I tell you what, the bank is probably doing a lot of things that you could pick up from if you just stopped and observed around you. And I think sometimes people take for granted. I think maybe the field, the industry, the position that they're in, to stop and realize like, hey, there's probably things that I can pick up from here. Now you were doing grass cutting. Okay, guess what? There's a lot of value that you can learn from a simple business like that. People don't overlook that. There are massive landscaping companies that can turn all different directions. And we can kind of, maybe if you're interested, we'll dive into this. I think service-based industries, I think, are one of the ones that are going to be, I think, a little bit more resilient. And they are even already now, especially as we kind of move forward. A lot of people are scared of AI. They're scared of technology. Guess what, guys? The robotics are not here yet. The We're not Skynet and Terminator, and we probably won't be for a long time, but the service-based industries, I think, are going to be one of those ones that are going to be quite resilient for quite some time. That's awesome that you've helped multiple companies specifically in those types of fields, not only to scale, but also to exit. But I love that you were able to take the grass cutting company and exit. Most people are like, okay, cool. I cut grass for a couple of years during the summertime and whatnot. And then that's it. You park away the mower, you sell all the whatever equipment, and then that's it. But no, you actually exited. And I don't think that's something that a lot of people can say. So you obviously understood the value. Now, I'm curious to dive into that. In order to exit, you have to have had implemented systems along the way in order to do that successfully. There's a recipe that's there. And I'm sure this is what you folks are teaching people, teaching entrepreneurs, because I know a lot of people just get into space. Hey man, I love cutting grass. Awesome. Okay, I'm a business owner. Yeah, you could be, but there's other things that you have to take into consideration, especially if you're planning to sell. Dive in a little bit more with that for me. Is there some processes, some things that people can implement in order to maybe even start thinking that way in terms of exiting?
Yeah, so let's think about what I call the Deca Millionaire Way. And I want to set some foundation here to help our listeners understand kind of where my mind's coming from. I don't believe that every business is going to end with a sell. I don't believe that. Some of our companies are going to go into atrophy. Let's just be honest and real. Some companies aren't worth selling. Some companies you may end up transitioning to your children. And you're just like, hey, I'm going to make a gift, benevolence gift. Some companies may end up being acquired by a team member without any revenue changing hands. But ultimately, all of our companies will exit. We'll leave them at some point. If by no chance, hopefully when we see Jesus at some point, okay? So we're going to ultimately leave our companies. We're not taking us past the grave, period, in discussion. So with that being said, there's a framework that most in the service-based industries or service-based businesses don't understand, and what I call the Deca Millionaire Way. So let's just find our terms. What is a Deca? A Deca Millionaire is someone who has been able to amass $10 million in net worth or greater. Simple calculation. Like, I don't think a Deca Millionaire is necessary. Here's the data points. There are 33 million small businesses in the United States. When we say small businesses, that is according to the SBA, anybody that has less than 500 employees. That's a lot of businesses out there, okay? So there's 33 million. If we segment the businesses, there's three major segments. You have the retail, that's like the brick and mortar, like you go through and you pick up a glass of water in a mason jar. So you have retail. You have the manufacturing. We're going to make the glass, okay? We're going to actually manufacture. And you have service. Service is where we are providing a manual service for revenue, okay? We're going to put the water in the glass. That would be a service-based business. So in the service-based business, there are roughly about 28 million that have employees. So the way I like to say in my simple South Georgia dirt road mentality, this is Chuck in a truck. This is the guy who puts a lawnmower in the back of his truck and runs down and cuts somebody's grass, okay? Picks up a little kid on the way and he's gonna cut some grass. It's the pool builder. I got construction happening at my house right now. It's the piano tuner. I got a guy coming out who runs a piano tuning company to tune my Yamaha behind me. So these are the individuals who provide a service. Most of us in the service-based industry, if we run a bell curve out, most of us aspire, and the vast majority of successful business owners can do this. We work until we make about $200,000 in revenue. That's the mean right now. Sounds like a big number, but it's not. What we're often trying to do is okay, we want to replace our spouse so they can stay at home or they can do something else, get them out of their house. And so we calculate it across our great country from where you're at in the Pacific to where I'm out on the East Coast. 200 grand is pretty attainable. But here's what's amazing, Steve, and you know this, we were talking about tax savings. We hire, because we're business owners, we hire really good CPAs, accountants, tax preparers, and they do things like, you know what? Maybe you should pay your spouse out of the business. Maybe you should buy that vehicle out of the business. Maybe you should pay that cell phone out of the company. Maybe you should take that trip on the company, do some CE, and we come with all these strategies in order not to pay the government. Because we are Americans and we don't want to give the government our money. So we come with all these strategies, and before you know it, we reach it after maybe a decade or two. We're making 20 grand and we're putting it in our pocket. We're living this lifestyle. People look and say, it must be nice. And we're like, it is, if you only remember. And so we have these conversations, but we don't realize that in all honesty, when we calculate what we're spending through the business, that we could easily be making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 all in. That vehicle payment is part of if it was a W-2 employee, they'd have to have that pre-tax. If it's the health insurance and the cell phone and the travel. But before you know it, we live this lifestyle. As a business owner, we're making not 200, maybe 300, maybe 400, maybe 500. And then we get old. our grace started kicking in. Our aches and pains start hurting. And it's like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore, man. I'm done. And so we're maybe 50, maybe 40, maybe 60, maybe 70. It doesn't matter the age. All of a sudden, we're just like, I'm done. I'm going to find somebody to buy my company. And we slow and behold realize that the amount of money they're going to pay for us for the company is not going to provide the lifestyle that we're used to living on. And so the Deca Millionaire Way says, why don't we build a business that is attractive to somebody that helps us afford to bridge the gap, so whenever we decide to exit, whether that be at age 40 like I did or ready to be 70 like my parents did, whenever you decide to exit, the net sum maintains the lifestyle that we're used to. So that's why I call it the Deca Millionaire Way. So for most business owners, we don't even think in terms of what's it going to take for us to replace it so we don't have to work in the epicenter of our company. So we've set up 5 frameworks, and I want to walk through these frameworks for you and your listeners. This will help us think about how we're going to scale our companies. So there's 5 frameworks, and I'll give them to you, then we'll pause and see if you have any questions what I was just saying, and then we'll work through these. So the 5 frameworks are this. We have first, you'll see my shirt, it says be relentless. Be relentless. I wear that everywhere because we're going to have relentless foundation. You know this in real estate. You can't go north, you can't go vertical in a house until you go down and build a good foundation. The stronger the foundation, the stronger the house. In fact, scripture talks about a house being built on stone rather than built on sand. It's a great parable that Jesus himself gave out. We want to have a foundation for our business that's built on stone. So we talk about relentless foundation. Then we go to relentless examination. Who are we and how is our business shaping up compared to the marketplace? Relentless examination. Then we go to relentless execution. Man, most of us come up with a lot of ideas we don't actually execute. So we got to talk about how we're going to execute. Then we go to relentless exit. What's it going to take for us to have a business where somebody comes in, puts some Benjamins in our pocket? We're talking about lots of Benjamins in our pocket. And then we have relentless freedom. The 5th one, relentless freedom. I got to believe. And y'all message me on Instagram and tell me, Goodbread, you're smoking crack. It's easy. Just go to @Justin Goodbread Instagram. I'm easy to find. I'm out there everywhere. Message me on Instagram and tell me, Goodbread, you're smoking crack if you don't believe this. Most of us did not go into business to create a prison for ourselves. We want a freedom. We want a freedom of pocketbook, freedom of calendar, freedom of time, freedom of whatever it was. We want a freedom. Most of us as business owners do not have freedom. Most of us do not have freedom. So how do we gain freedom? How do we get out of prison? So that's the Deca Millionaire Way, Steve, that we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that. And it's true. It's as a business owner, again, I want to work for myself so I don't have to work nights and weekends kind of deal. And it's like, you know what? You're working all of the nights, all of the weekends, especially when you just get started. You're working all of the days. There's always that, I would say it is definitely a dual-edged sword, because it's one of those things like there's something nice to be able to clock out and just check out and leave everything at work. But like you're never going to be in full control of your schedule. There's no opportunity for an exit. But again, you can learn stuff. You can learn things from wherever you are and in life, wherever you are in your career. So we're definitely not going to shy away from that or think that's something negative. But yeah, all right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the foundation. It's funny because as soon as you were saying that, I remember visiting Chicago years ago, and they were building up what was going to be a massive skyscraper. And you could see the foundation, and I could not believe how deep into the ground that they had built. And it's, because you got to go as high as you want to go, you got to go that deep. And I was blown away. I had no clue. This is a long time ago. I had no idea. And I just could not believe it. Like, holy smokes, man. You guys go down to the center of the earth there just to put up this huge tower. And of course, I visited a few years ago, and you see this massive skyscraper. And foundation is key. And I love your framework there. So let's dive in. Let's talk about that. Like, how can somebody set something up successfully from the get-go? I'm like, okay, hey, how do I start with the end in mind? This is really what you're doing.
Absolutely. So I'll make this statement. I say this with as much boldness as I can, that anything and everything we've experienced in life at this point is all part of a master plan that God has prepared, and He's preparing you for what He's prepared for you. There are no accidents. Some of us have gone through very hard times that are painful, times that will bring tears to our eyes if we start talking about it, myself included. And others have had a little bit maybe not that difficult. And that's okay. Whatever your journey is to this particular point, as you listen to this country boy from East Tennessee now talking with this, my southern drawl, as you listen to me, it doesn't matter What matters is who you are and everything that God has prepared for you at this point and put you through and allowed to come into your life, has given you an opportunity to build from it. So when we think about foundation, we look back realizing that God makes no mistakes. He doesn't make any mistakes. But in order for us to build a business, we have to come to what are the values that we possess in our life. And so I want you to think about who is it that makes Steve and Justin uniquely, out of the 8.3 billion people in the world, what values do we possess that are just, we're not going to waver from those. For me, one of my values, and I have 11 of them, I talk right about in my book, The Deca Millionaire Way, coming out here before too long. One of my values is turn the turtle. I know it sounds kind of crazy. You have a turtle, you're going to turn it. Years ago, my dad and I were walking through the woods, Steve, and we came upon this box turtle, which is this little colorful turtle in East Tennessee. They were about the size of a grapefruit, if you will, and he was upside down struggling. He had his legs out, his neck was out, and he was flailing, he was trying to turn himself over. My dad just reached down and turned the turtle upside down, turned it around side up, and the little turtle kind of scurried as a turtle does on its way. And I looked at my dad, trying to be a smart 16-year-old like many of us have been in our life. I looked at Pops, as we called him. I said, "Hey, Pops, why'd you do that?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Why'd you do that?" He said, "Because I can." I said, "You're missing what I'm saying, Dad. Why?" And I'm trying to be like philosophical. I said, "Why'd you turn the turtle over?" He said, "Because I can." I said, "No, Dad, you're not hearing me." Like as a 16-year-old, my big old head kicked up there with pride. And he looked at me as a loving dad, put his hands on my shoulders, and he said, "Son, you're not hearing me. I did it because I can." And he said, "What I want to say," he said, "anytime you have the power within yourself to help somebody or something, and it doesn't cost you a lot of time, it's just you can naturally do it, you do it. No questions asked, not for glory, not for, just you do it." From that day forward, that became a value of mine. So if I see somebody that can help, I can turn the turtle. Each of us have a story like that. Maybe we were done wrong. Maybe we had an experience like a turtle in the woods, but we have these values that make us uniquely who we are. So if we're going to build a business deep, we got to know deeply who we are first. And once we know who we are, then we've got to align that purpose, or what I call the vision that God's given us. He says in Psalms 37, he gives us the desires of our hearts. He says, "Delight thyself in the Lord, he'll give you the desires of your heart," which means that there's desires that we have within us as humans that say, "Man, I wish I could." You and I were talking about this. I live on a few hundred acres here in East Tennessee. We have a quarter mile of riverfront right on the main river of East Tennessee. We can see the Cumberland Mountains. Whenever I moved out here, we bought 30 acres. I told Emily, I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could acquire that land, all these houses, and create a compound, if you will, a mountaintop where the Goodbread's on, that we can have missionaries and churches and friends, and let me do my business off this mountaintop and just set it up to where we can use this one little hill just to impact people. Wouldn't it be amazing if? That's a vision. God's giving you, no doubt you have a vision in your life that you say, "Man, wouldn't it be amazing if I could do this particular business? Wouldn't it be amazing if our business could grow to 100,000 doors? Wouldn't it be amazing if that was possible?" There's a reason why it's there. It's something that you have rooted inside you. So if you know who your values are and you can quantify that vision, then we now have the catalyst for creating a relentless foundation. And what's going to happen as we get into execution, as we now start having to hire employees and building systems and bringing on customers and all those things that often cause so many business owners to flounder. The reason why the business owners flounder is they don't know who they are, and they don't know why they're on this journey, and they've not done the hard work, the introspective work of saying, "I am this individual uniquely and wonderfully made to carry out this particular purpose, and therefore all this trouble, all this headwinds, all the resistance that I'm facing, it doesn't matter because I'm going this way whether it wins or loses." So when we talk about going vertical in our business, the very first foundational things is who are we, why are we, where are we going? And most of us, the vast majority, hear me on this, the vast majority, and I talk to tens of thousands of business owners per year, either through our podcast, on stages, whenever I walk off, when I meet people, I just talk to so many people, the vast majority of business owners don't know who they are or where they're going. Yep. And so that leaves them disconnected. No wonder 86% of business owners end up being deprived of what their future is. No wonder we're the #1 divorce rate out of all the things we study. No wonder we have an opioid and a suicide rate and all these lost things that we, the most successful, the most talented people that God's put on the earth, we just aren't grounded properly. So when we talk about the Deca Millionaire Way, yeah, we're going to talk about all the fun, sexy stuff about how to scale a company and how to do these things what runs without us and creates a lot of bank. But friends, you don't get there. You don't get to that win, that finish line until you go through the grind of who are you and why are you and where are you going, and become so resolved in your person that no matter what's in front of you, because it's coming, man, it's coming. When you get to relentless execution, there's going to be a wall that's in front of you. You're going to look at one day and go, "Huh, how are we going to deal with this one?" And you may end up having some tears, some bloodshed. whenever you face that, you're going to come back to who you are as a person. You're going to realize that it doesn't matter what's in front of you. You're going over it, around it, through it, underneath it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you realize that these are the values and this is the vision that you have for your particular life. That is the foundation. I spent a lot of time there, Steve, because most of us, let's be honest, most of us as business owners, we don't. We don't. And so whenever we get a little bit of resistance, when the enemy puts something in our guard, we end up floundering. We end up going by the wayside. We end up moving in a position where now this was the way we should go, but we're going to change gears, and we never reach that desired outcome. I say it. I'm going to leave it. I'll be quiet after this because I want you to hear me on this. I had somebody on my podcast, and we were talking about his journey, hard journey. Wouldn't trade places with a guy. Hard journey. And he made the statement. And as a believer, Steve, I think you'll get this. He wasn't trying to be philosophical, biblical. He just made the statement. He said, Justin, to me, hell, not in the sense of biblical hell, but hell in the sense of a human is looking at myself on my deathbed and realizing that if I had a little bit more faith in the person I could have become, that's hell. Most of us as business owners, we're floundering. We're facing resistance. We're facing the headwinds because we don't know who we are nor how God has uniquely gifted us. So Relentless Foundation, I spend a lot of time there because I want to bring us to the gravitas of what that truly means. The more vertical you want to go, the deeper your foundation has to be.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And that's so good. It's so good. And it's so relevant because again, like if you don't know, and again, a lot of people will talk about it. It's like, oh, what's your why? But I think it's deeper than that because the why is going to be, okay, hey, I'd love to strive towards this. But honestly, because same as you, Coach, I've talked with thousands of people over the years. It's always going to be my first advice. It's like, hey, you have to know yourself. You have to know thyself. God has created us individually, uniquely to have certain skills, gifts, talents. And you have to understand that about yourself, or else guess what? You will never reach whatever goal it is that you're trying to get to. You just won't. You're going to give up because again, if you're trying to fight against who you are, you're failing from the start. And so you're trying to drive something that's just never going to fit. And so it's like you have to, the hard work, the real hard work, again, not taking away from any part of the entrepreneur's journey, but a big part of that journey, honestly, is that self-introspection, is that, okay, like who am I? How am I made? You want some instruction on, let's say you're putting together some IKEA furniture or whatever. It's okay, I need some instructions here. As simple as they make it, I still need some instructions or else I'm just never going to be able to create what the designer created it to be. So we need that instruction on ourselves. We need to know, we need to do the study. And that's honestly, for most people, that's the hard part. Because a lot of times then you're looking in the mirror. If I'm not where I need to be, why is that? If I've been fighting the way that I was created all these years. So we want to help you to get to the right destination with the right journey. And again, you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache putting in that time and effort and energy. And like I said, I've listened to so many other people talk about kind of roundabout, again, like without the faith component, there are some practical tools, but again, man, you're going to be so much more in alignment. It will be so much more rewarding, so much more fulfilling to do it the way that you've been created. No, I love that. And it is vital. Yeah.
So the second step is relentless examination. Okay. So we talked about the introspective, but when we come to business owners, we have a continuation of introspective. The way I like to describe this, Steve, is pancakes. I love pancakes. I don't know if you like pancakes or not. I like pancakes. The best pancakes I ever had was in just across the bay from San Francisco, if I can say it, Triberon, California. They were multi-grain pancakes. They had bananas on top, Steve, had caramel drizzled over it. They were luscious. They were probably 5,000 calories. They were luscious. Here's a question for you. Have you ever seen a one-sided pancake? No. Have you ever seen a one-sided coin? No. Have you ever seen a one-sided piece of paper? No. We as business owners, we often look at our business, and that's the side we all focus on. In business, there's 286 measurements that we can move up and down that tell us the quality of the business. Those are easy. Those are all tactical. They're academic. That's what we end up dealing with inside the relentless execution phase, is how do we move the business to where we create a harmonious and fast-scaling company? But in order to do that, there are 5 areas that we have to look at on the opposite side of the pancake. So these are not mine. Again, just a country boy born and raised on this dirt road, dude. I'm not this smart. But we have faith, family, friends, fitness, finances. 5F. You've heard it before. You probably saw the t-shirt. Faith. What is your belief system? Now, I'm a Christian. I don't mind saying that. In fact, I used to be apologetic and not say that, Steve. But the more I talk about my faith, the more of my friends who are Muslim and Hindu and agnostic and atheistic, they're like, hey, we love your position. We don't agree with you, but we know who you are. So I decided to be me. So we all have a faith system. We have some belief system. I'm sitting in a chair and it's holding my butt up. There's a faith that the chair is going to work. We all have faith. You just breathe. That's oxygen. You have faith. You may not realize that your body's going to work and convert the oxygen so we can stay alive. So we have a faith system. The faith is what helps us get through the hard times. You know what I've noticed though is I've seen a lot of business owners that work so hard to build a business that they lose their family. What good is it if you have the money and you don't have somebody to share it with or a family? I have a friend of mine who's worth about $75 million. His kids are potheads, drug heads, they're just dope. He's not giving any money to them. He's on his fourth marriage about to fall apart, all because of money. Family just is a wreck. He's miserable. He's crying over tears when we were bass fishing and said, Justin, I would trade it all, everything I have for my family back. Because family is important. We as business owners, if we don't look at the opposite side of the pancake, we end up building a business that we're going to end up hating. And so if we're going to build an exit or freedom, we got to have our faith and family, our friends. We all need the friends in our life who are going to challenge us and support us and laugh with us and do this thing, because we get lonely as business owners. It's freaking lonely. Okay. So we have faith, family, friends, fitness. I can't tell you the times I've been so out of shape, Steve, I could not walk up a hill in East Tennessee. My lungs about to pop. What I've noticed is the more I take care of my mind, my body, the faster my businesses grow. And our finances take care of themselves. So there's 5 F's: faith, family, friends, fitness, finances. Whenever we focus on our business, which is often our biggest asset, we focus on our business, but we get so heavy weighted on the business side that we don't keep harmony and alignment on those 5 F's. Then when it comes to the exit or when it comes to execution, something is going to be awry. It's not going to scale. Okay. So we have our Relentless foundation. We got that. We have relentless examination, 2 sides of the pancake. Then we go to relentless execution. All right, relentless execution is powerful. For us as business owners, we're about to geek out. There's 8 areas of business, 8 areas of every business. I don't care who you are, what you have, there's 8 areas. They are this: planning. Where are you going and how are you going to get there? Leadership. Maybe you're a person of 1, maybe you're a team of 500. Who are you leading and how are you going to lead them to where that success is? You have sales and marketing. They're cousins. They work differently, but they have their purposes. You have people, the people you're going to hire and the people you're going to work for. Okay. You have operations, how you're going to deliver what you told somebody you're going to do. You have finance, which is the money side of things. There's about 60 KPIs we can measure in finances. And then you have legal, what I call risk management. That's the entity selection you're going to have. That's the contracts you're going to use. That's HIPAA. That is RISA. That's all these different guidelines that govern bodies, whatever industry you're in is going to govern you by. The goal of us in relentless execution is to create harmony amongst those 8 areas. So the way I describe this, Steve, is this: in South Georgia, tell me if you've ever experienced this. We had this thing called the Wheel of Death. The Wheel of Death. It was ridiculous. It was multicolored. It was yellow, red, green, blue. Now, some people might call it a merry-go-round. We call it the Wheel of Death. The Wheel of Death, you would spin it, the merry-go-round, you would spin it, and you would hold on for dear life, and if you fell, you slide off and you'd hit the ground. But if you could hold on to it, man, if it got going fast enough, you could grip it and your legs would go hanging out, and you go around in circles, round and round. One year, we decided we're going to be smart. We hooked a dirt bike tire up to the Wheel of Death, and we got it going really fast, and we were on the Wheel of Death, and whoever was running the dirt bike got it going too fast, and you might imagine what would happen. We all went flying off. We were laughing and giggling, but thank God we didn't die. What's amazing on the Wheel of Death is whenever you're hanging on the outside, it's hard. Your fingers lose grip, and it's hard, and it's stressful, and you have the pressure on your face, the G-forces around that wheel, depending on how fast you get going. But if you sit in the middle of that, you can sit there and laugh and play cards, do whatever you want to do. I was going too fast, but you can sit there and laugh at your buddies falling off the Wheel of Death. Now, with that image in mind, I just gave you 8 little areas on the Wheel of Death: planning, leadership, sales, marketing, people, operations, finance, and legal. 8 areas. What we do as business owners, we lean into 1 or 2 of those areas because it's our strength. Some of us are really good marketers. So we go all in on marketing, but we forget compliance, we forget risk management. Some of us are really good at leadership, but we forget how to set up systems. Some of us are good at setting up systems, but we forget how to plan where we're going. A good, solid business is one that has harmony, and therefore it can spin without much volatility or fluctuation or vibration. So as we get to the center of our business, we create a business that can circle around us. And that's what many of us naturally do. And that causes the problem because we end up being the epicenter of our company. Everything has to flow to us. We are the business. It is our identity. We've forgotten the foundation. We've forgotten the examination phases. And now all of a sudden we introduce ourselves as, hey, I'm Justin Goodbread. I'm a coach, versus I'm Justin Goodbread. I'm a hunter. I'm a farmer. I'm a father. I'm a friend. I'm a Christian. I'm a pianist. I do all these things. We now identify as the business. And so whenever we're trying to get to freedom, we have to realize that the 8 areas of business in this relentless examination is all about creating a system that where we can hop off the wheel and the wheel can spin without us. That's what we're shooting for. Okay. So we got relentless foundation, relentless examination, and now relentless execution. Okay. All that is for relentless exit. No matter where you're at in your company, today, here's a challenge for you. Would somebody pay you what you think it's worth today? The answer is no. The vast majority, and I would say, what's the old saying, 68.3% of statistics are made up on the spot. I'm going to make one up on the spot. I just made that one up, by the way. The vast majority, I would have to believe that the vast majority, almost 90% or more of our businesses aren't worth what we think they're worth. Yeah. So in order for us to create a relentless exit where somebody's going to come in and put some Benjamins in our pockets so we can actually have what we can have freedom of money, if you will, then we have to build a business that can operate without us. Take that wheel of death, the spinning wheel of death, and remove yourself. Where now you're sitting on the park bench saying, look at those clowns. They're going to hurt themselves if they fall off of that. That's what my mom used to do. So we do all those 4 areas for ultimate relentless freedom. But before we go there, let me pause and see if we're tracking with me.
Yeah, no, and it's super vital. There's so many different points in there because I'm just meeting over the years, meeting people who are at different stages of this journey. And going back to your examination or your pancake model, there's so many different facets there where things you have to focus on these different areas. And the same thing with your execution and being in balance. There's so many areas where I think people will stay and they'll dwell too long, and they're great at, let's say, taking action. And that's awesome. That's a part of being a successful business owner, but it's one facet. And so it's like, they're just to your point, they go heavy on wherever area they feel the most comfortable in it. And that's awesome. You're working to your strength. But if you don't address those other ones, hey, guess what? Either that thing's going to go out of balance and just completely fly off, or to your point, you just won't ever be able to step away. And then that comes with its own challenges too, because, hey, you know what? If your identity is the business, guess what? You're going to self-sabotage even be able to step away because your identity is tied to it. So you're going to kill yourself, and then let alone ever get to a point where you're golden handcuffed, so to speak. You're in the same position as, let's say, you would have been maybe as an employee. You can't leave, right?
You're miserable. Yep. You get to prison is what happens. Yep. And so that's why I spent so much time talking about Relentless Foundation, because if we want freedom, whatever you might define freedom, some people say freedom of money, that I want to be able to spend whatever amount of money I want to spend on something. That's fine. Money's so cheap, whatever. That may be your goal. I really view money as just so easy to make. And it sounds crazy, but the money is so cheap to me. But it may be freedom of time. The older I get, the more I value my time. I am so 100%. Willing to part from my dollars to gain my time back. I want my time to spend with my children, to spend with my wife, to spend with my friends, to spend exercising, to spend impacting those who God puts in my life for me to impact. So maybe it's freedom of time. Maybe it's freedom of travel. Maybe it's freedom of influence. Maybe it's freedom. Whatever your definition of freedom is, we're not going to achieve freedom as business owners unless our foundation is deep. Because when, like you were just illustrating, is we become identified as the company. We become the pride ego. The pride and the ego kicks up. By the way, that's my Achilles heel is pride. It kicks up and was like, look at what I did. Look at all these awards. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, here's what's sad. Here's a stat for you. Currently, right now in the United States, there's about 350 middle market businesses. Middle market, meaning $10 million to $100 million in EBITDA, earnings before depreciation, interest, taxes, amortization. So EBITDA. $10 to $100 million EBITDA, 350,000. Roughly right now, based on the data points that we've read from the AMAA, Academies of Mergers and Acquisitions Advisors, right now, roughly only 14% of those will actually transact. Not a lot. Of those that transact, so we're talking about 68,000 businesses that will transact over the next 10 years. Of those that transact, only 4% of business owners will be happy. So we're talking 350,000 middle market businesses. Only 4%, we're talking less than 6,000 business owners will be happy. Let's bring it to the micro market. The micro market is startup to 10 million in EBITDA. That's where the vast majority, 28 million live there. The numbers are worse. So when we think about the Deca Millionaire Way, it's not about gaining money. Hear me, friends, it's not about money. Yeah. Money is so cheap. It is so stinking easy to get money. What the Deca Millionaire Way is a thought pattern. And I heard this from Jim Rohn years ago. He was coaching and he said, the object is not to become a millionaire, but for who you become along the journey. Yep. The goal around the Deca Millionaire Way is to realize that life is more than shiny material objects and houses and cars and exotic vacations. It's not that. It's not about awards. It's not about prestige. It's none of that. It's about fulfilling the very thing that God has equipped you and designed you to do. Period. In a discussion. And as you walk that journey, the reward is all the things that perhaps you desire. That's the reward. It's an unbelievable journey. So in order to have freedom of time, a pocketbook of influence, of impact, whatever it may be that you're striving for, you're not going to do it unless you walk through who are you and why are you. Whenever you examine yourself and your business together, both sides of that pancake, are they in alignment? When you look at the company, 256 metrics in the company, and you have these 8 areas of the business, are they positioned where they're in harmony? Are you weighted wrong? Then when you get to the exit, have you built a business that somebody wants to pay you premium dollars for? You can. It doesn't happen a year before you exit. It takes some time to start thinking about that now. And ultimately, there is a journey where along the way, when no matter where you're at, that you're at peace. You don't wake up at night traumatized. You don't wake up at night frustrated. You know that you go to sleep at night and say, man, I meet my maker tomorrow. It's been a good journey. This is life of freedom that will yield freedom of pocketbook. Yeah, that happens. Freedom of influence. Yeah, that happens. But all that freedom comes from the 4 very hard, very arduous, very, very tedious actions that take place along the Deca Millionaire Way. That's what we teach. Yeah. That's what we coach. And I've literally walked hundreds of business owners to enterprise value greater than 8 figures, $10 million or greater valuation. I personally have achieved that. It's been a fun journey to walk. So friends, I don't know where you're at today. I don't know where you're at in your journey, whether or not you're just getting started, whether or not you're even a business owner, whether or not like me in real estate and Steve in real estate. What do you want? What is it that you truly desire? In the quiet of night, sitting out by a pine tree in South Georgia like I often do, and you look up at the stars, what is it that you truly want? If you want it, and you can desire it, and you follow the framework, it will yield the outcome.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like the journey, that understanding of yourself is the win. Because at the end of the day, if you're following this framework, if you're have an understanding of who you are, you'll have kept things in balance. You won't have chased things for the wrong reasons, gone down the path where it's like, okay, man, this thing has been a grind the whole time. And okay, sure, I forced it to work. But at the end of the day, yeah, I sacrificed my family. I'm actually miserable because even though I forced this thing to make this work, because I'm successful, like in terms of I'm a great executive, I'm a great COO, you can force things to work, but is that juice worth the squeeze? Are you, at the end of the day, are you going to be happy with those results? Are you going to be happy with yourself? Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be looking in the mirror. Yeah. Now, I love this holistic approach because again, you're right, it's a win. And if you were in balance this whole time, maybe you didn't get to 9 figures, but you had an incredibly rewarding career and life and business and tons of great relationships all along the way. Man, that's more than the win. That's really what you need to do. That's attractive. You're gonna bring great people with you along the way. You'll have made some great friends and great contacts because again, people want to be around that. Hey man, what is that about Justin? Gosh, man, he's got a great family life. He's got something. He's got something I don't have. And I've got maybe an extra zero, a couple of zeros at the end of my net worth. But what is it? You know what I mean? I don't feel as successful as that. And so I think what Justin's trying to get across and what I would want for each and every one of you that's listening or watching is to have that rewarding end, because you can have that. But again, that starts with you. And a lot of times we just don't want to look in the mirror. I would highly encourage every one of you to stop, to take a look at, because every one of us has a different background, has a different story. But at the end of the day, we have these same kind of underlying drivers and hurts and all of this kind of stuff. If you haven't done that, unplug from social media. I don't have a TV. For me, that you don't need it. You don't need any extra outside noise, especially if you're a business owner, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're called to something more. Get rid of any extra distraction. You've got enough outside influence. Like focus on the things that you need to do and start with yourself. Do exactly what Justin's talking about. That framework, I think, is excellent, especially if you're wanting to do something, if you do eventually want to have an exit. But I think the journey in and of itself is more than worthwhile. Great. Thank you for sharing that. This is a point in our show, Justin, this has gone by in a blink, where we do something, just what we call our fire round. It's just a little bit more rapid fire, brief Q&A. Is that something you're up for?
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Awesome. All right. First question. What is your favorite book recommendation? Yours is not out yet, so I know you can't say your own. For us real estate guys, it's usually the Purple Bible, Rich Dad Poor Dad. But do you have some go-to book recommendation? And they don't have to be business. It can be, honestly, it can be whatever. It could be mindset, it could be faith, it can be whatever.
Yeah. So I read 5 books every year. I have since I was 16 years of age. Rich Dad Poor Dad is one of those books.
Yeah.
Rich Dad, I love Robert Kiyosaki's approach, but I also read Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. I want to balance those two out. I live Kiyosaki in my business life. I live Ramsey in my personal life. That's who I am. Okay. I don't like debt, but I don't mind it in business. I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That book will help you grow rich, but the vast majority of humans will never read it, and those who do will never do it. And so I read those 3 books. I read the book of Proverbs every single day. It's Solomon. He was considered to be the wisest person ever to live. And I think if you take a chapter of the book of Proverbs and you read it, it can add so much benefit to your life. It's one of those books. And then I read George Clausen's The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yep.
A Richest Man in Babylon has a simple principle, and that is this: pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. You don't often see that Ramsey's or Kiyosaki's thing. You see it in scripture, but you don't often see it in any other business book out there. I read those books as a foundational point for my life. There's a lot of other good books I could tell you about. I literally am building a library right now that is a 16 by 20 room that's floor to ceiling with all the books I've read. I've been reading a book every week, 1 book a week since I was 16 years old for my entire life. So I love books, but those are my 5, man. They ground me and they keep me focused on what's important for my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a lot of that it's timeless wisdom. A lot of times, I tell this to my kids all the time. It's like, yeah, okay, a lot of people, that's the Bible. Okay, that's outdated. That doesn't apply to our modern times. I'm like, you know what? If you ever spend any time like in the Bible, like reading through the stories of the individuals, just diving into the individual stories, they deal with the same junk that we do today. Yeah. We just have more technology to throw at trying to solve the same problems. It's literally the same stuff, guys. You know why? The common denominator is you're still dealing with people. Yeah. Again, go to timeless wisdom. It's timeless for a reason. It's lasted thousands of years for a reason. And I guarantee you can be like, oh, wow, I just saw that on that movie. Oh, that just happened to me. And you're reading these stories of these different biblical figures. It's incredible. All right. Love it. No, I love those book recommendations. All great. I would highly recommend. If you guys haven't checked any of those out, highly recommend them. They are good. Really good. All right. Next question. What would you consider your superpower to be?
Simplification. Taking something very complex and breaking it down simple. I say it this way, and I mean it, is I'm a country boy. I don't want to think that hard, Steve. And so I read a lot of books that are heady. I know a lot of people who are really smart, but they make things too complicated. And I want to break something down super simple. I just gave you a 5-step framework. There are countless journals written on those 5 steps, but that doesn't do me any good. I want something that I can chew on. I like some basic good food, man. Give me a pizza with some meat lovers on it. No pineapple on my pizza, by the way, Steve. That's just wrong. That's of the devil. Okay, I know you're in Hawaii and all that stuff where pineapples grow, but no pineapple on pizza. So I like to chew things that are simple. And so simplification is my superpower.
Awesome. Now you got me thinking about Tennessee barbecue, man. I'm hungry.
Come on, man. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Next question. If you had a time machine and you can go back and visit 20-year-old Justin, what advice would you have for him?
Oh, wow. Your dreams can come true. Let me explain that. I was 19 years old sitting at a Zig Ziglar conference. I was the youngest person in the conference. Everybody else is now our age, 30s, 40s, and 50s. These individuals are trying to figure out how they're going to move their life as Zig was doing. Zig was a powerful orator of late, one of my heroes I like to read behind. And as a 19-year-old, I was sitting here watching the man on stage prime the pump, as this example that many of you maybe have seen on video. And he stopped in the middle of it. He said, I want you to take out a half a sheet of paper. So I ripped a half, gave a half to somebody else. And he said, get you a pen. So here's literally what I did, Steve. This is reality. He said, get a pen, write down run numbers 1 through 3. Number 3, 3. Got it. I'm sitting there as a 19-year-old. And he says, I'd like for you to write your wildest dreams down. Okay. That you want to accomplish. And he looked at the ceiling in the next 20 years. I'm 19. I literally wrote these 3 things down. I'm not ashamed to say this is the way I wrote down. I said, number 1, I'm going to marry a smoking hot girl. Emily's in my life. That came true 2 years later. I'm telling you, my priorities were in order at that point. I literally wrote a smoking hot girl. Number 2 was, I'm going to write a New York Times bestseller. That was number 2. Now, what 19-year-old thinks that? Remember, I'm a book reader, and I always see this New York Times bestseller. I had no idea what it meant. I have not written that yet. It's coming, but I have reached the number 1 Wall Street Journal bestseller. It's on Your Baby's Ugly. It's out there, number 1. I've sold more than 3 million copies of my book, The Ultimate Sale, in China. I've got 2 new books. I got a Relentless journal. That's a Christian journal for business owners. You can find on Amazon. That's already we released it in February this year. I think we have 35,000 copies sold already on a Christian journal for business owners to walk through on day to day. By the way, it's not fluff. If you're a Christian, you're a business owner, beware. It'll kick you in the teeth. Okay. I got 2 other books, God's Way to Education and the Deca Millionaire Way, that are coming out. At some point, they're going to be a New York Times bestseller. So that was my second point. The third point was, I'm not that deep, Steve. It's funny. I said, I'm going to be worth $1 million. I put down $1 million, and I looked at it, and I was like, crap. I remember like it was yesterday. Crap. Why $1 million? Why can't it be 10? So I put it on the zero, I'm putting 10 behind it, move my commas. And I put it there and I circled it. So if I were to tell my 20-year-old self, I would say this: your wildest dreams can come true. Write them down. They're on the opposite side, but you're going to face resistance like you've never dreamt of. You're going to face fray. You're going to face hard times that'll bring you to your knees asking, is God even real? You're going to face things that have you questioning your sanity. You're going through times that you can't even imagine yet that are so hard. But on the opposite side of that pancake, man, there's a lot of sweetness, a lot of goodness. That's what I would tell myself.
Awesome. Love it. Justin, if for our readers or our listeners and our subscribers, if they want to reach out to you, they want to get in touch with you, find some of these resources, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm gonna give you two directions. It's kind of hard to get a hold of me. So first of all, go to Instagram, Justin Goodbread. It's easy, at Justin Goodbread. You can find my life there. My team controls all that, and I share my life through stories and all that stuff. But I have a podcast. It's called Deca Millionaire Decoded. If you're a business owner, you're trying to figure out how to unwrap this, we literally deal with the secrets of how to rapidly scale companies. Those two are the places I would direct you to. You can search my name. There's a lot of fun stuff out there about me, but those are the two directions I would send somebody to.
Awesome. Justin, I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to come out and share some of this awesome framework, to share your great energy, your positivity, your faith. And I look forward to maybe having you back on in the future, especially once your book is released, and we'll check in with you and see how many more people you've helped. But thank you so much for hopping on with me today. And I've enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Look forward to the future.
Aloha. Thanks so much. Awesome conversation with Justin Goodbread. Oh man, that's an awesome framework for entrepreneurs and business owners, how he lays out those 5 different steps that every one of us needs to take, especially if you're planning towards some type of an exit. If you ever want to step away, so vital to start with the end in mind, because you really will approach things differently. But again, you want to stay sane and you want to have success in all areas of your life all along that journey. The exit is not the end all be all. It is something to shoot towards, but again, you don't want to lose yourself just trying to get there. And that framework that he is laid out is one way to help to get you there. So make sure you guys are checking him out. Check out his different resources that he has. And we'll look to see maybe about having him on back in the future. But guys, if you're interested in connecting with us and other local like-minded entrepreneurs, investors, come meet us at Honolulu Multifamily and more. We've got meetups every month that we have here in Honolulu. So if you're on island, if you're in the state, if you're planning a visit and a vacation or something, you want to come out and meet some awesome people here on the island, that's a great way to do it. If you want to learn more about our company, go to tricityequity.com to learn more about deals that we've done. Schedule a call with me and the team. Or you can reach out to me on socials at SG Fieros. Glad to connect with you, and we'd love to get you plugged into all the things that we've got going on. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. I got to take some action, and we'll see you on the next one.